Meeting of the Prescott Unified School District Governing Board to order. Welcome to all of you who are here today. We appreciate you being here. First order of business is our Pledge of Allegiance. Kevin and Ava, would you lead us? All right, thank you. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Are there any questions, additions, or changes to the agenda?
Might have one, just
Okay.
just on the approval of the minutes. When we make that motion, we might break it into two, because I'll have to abstain from the first one because I was not present, but I was here for the retreat. So
Okay.
we may make two motions.
Okay. We can make sure we make a note of that. Are there other questions or additions or changes to the agenda?
Yes, I'm not sure when to bring this up, that I want something pulled from the agenda.
Actually-
Postponed, actually.
So we can have a motion to table that item if,
Well, it
when
can
it
be
comes to that time.
postponed till the next meeting or whenever.
That's what tabling would do.
Table two, yeah. but-
Yeah, so when that item comes up for a vote, it's the option of board members to make a motion to table that item.
When it comes up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay. Can we receive a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Do I,
Not
then
yet.
what do I do now?
Wait
You
until
vote
it comes up
to
in the
approve the
agenda.
agenda.
Okay, so I don't vote, or
No,
I
you
abstain?
can vote. You certainly can vote on the agenda. When the item on the agenda that you're concerned about comes up, you can make a motion to table that item.
Okay, aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that motion is approved. The next item is the approval of the minutes. We've had a suggestion to break this into two. So we would amend this to say, to have first, a first motion to approve the minutes from the regular study and voting session meeting of October 2nd, 2023.
So
Are there?
moved.
Okay, it's been moved that we approve the minutes from the regular study and voting session meeting of October 2nd, 2023. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that-
Abstain.
Thank you. That motion passes. The second part of that is to approve the minutes from the governing board working meeting and retreat of October 19th, 2023, as presented.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from the governing board working meeting and retreat of October 19th, 2023, as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? And that motion passes. Information only items, summary of current events, Mr. Tenney.
Okay, super. Do we have a couple of slides with this? Awesome. So a couple of things that we wanted to make sure that the board is aware of and our public is aware of, and a couple of these I've already reported to you in a board report, but it's useful to talk with everybody. Mr. Ian Owens, who is our PE teacher, physical education teacher at Mile High Middle School, was nominated and named the Arizona Health and Physical Education Middle School Teacher of the Year this year, and we're super proud of Mr. Owens. We've got our next slide, another honoree, Mrs. Secor, who is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction here, or Instructional Support, right? That's what we call it these days. Director of Instructional Support here at PUSD was nominated and named the Educator of the Year by the Prescott Chamber of Commerce. And was it last week, Kelsey, that we had? All the weeks are running together for me. In the last 10 days or so, we got together and had this honor, and there were several hundred people in attendance. That was a nice honor for Kelsey, so we want to congratulate her as well. Very good. Before we move to the next slide, that's the last one. A couple other things that came to mind really quickly for me. A couple positive ones, one sadness that I will report here in just a minute. First of all, today is Election Day, as you are probably aware, and here in Prescott, we're only voting on the proposed amendments to the city charter. Do you mind if I mention this?
Go ahead.
I had the opportunity, Linda was kind to invite me along as she made a presentation at the Touchmark retirement home here, what's it been, about a week ago now. She was asked by a friend of hers to present to them about the different propositions that were proposed, a little redundant, for the ballot that people are turning in this evening or the last couple of weeks. Anyhow, there's some fairly complicated measures that that most people have a hard time getting their heads around. I was just so impressed. Linda had done a ton of homework and really prepared well, had a matrix for people. This is how various people in town who might have context for knowledge about these things, how they've expressed, where they're leaning on it. It was totally easy for me to imagine her with her teacher hat back on. I could imagine her in front of a group. Anyhow, it was great. And I thought that we had, how many people were in attendance? 40 plus people in attendance, and just really well done. And it was my honor to be along with you and see you do that. And so thanks for that. And people are voting on those very things tonight. So that's pretty cool. As well, throughout the state, there are 41 different districts, if I'm remembering the statistics correctly, who are going to their voters asking for either a bond or an override, an extension of what they've already got in place, or a new one. Our district is not doing that, but I think we're going to have a little bit of discussion about that later tonight, what that looks like, and if it's something that the board might want to consider for the future here. And then, let's see, Friday. Friday we are celebrating, we are observing, that's the word I'm looking for, observing Veterans Day. And there'll be things on the city level, a parade downtown as we do every year to honor our veterans like Mr. Goligoski and many others who have served our country in past years. And we do a number of things at different schools. I think I've shared some things with the board about what's going on at Granite Mountain tomorrow morning and the high school. Kevin or Ava, are you going to mention about the honor wall at the high school, or shall I do that?
I was not planning on it. I don't know if
I can. Okay, super. So you know we've got an award-winning junior ROTC unit at Prescott High School. When I say award-winning, they have been named a unit of distinction, right? I think 15 of the last 15 years. We don't know for sure, but Colonel DeCamper believes that's the longest streak in the United States of America, meaning that we may have the best junior ROTC unit in the United States of America. At any rate, one of the things that they do every year is honor veterans on Veterans Day, and they reach out to our community, anybody who's affiliated with the school district, particularly with Prescott High School, and post their photographs and some information about where and when and how they served our country. And that's a pretty neat thing that they do every year. They have an honor guard that stands kind of watch in front of the wall every day. The kids come through the lobby and kind of look, and it's a neat way to remember some of the blessings that we enjoy as citizens of the United States of America and the people who made that possible for us. So I think that's a really neat thing. There'll be things happening at a number of our schools. Linda, I wanted to let you know that at least one of our principals has gotten back with us and said, yep, we're doing the veterans card thing that you brought up, et cetera. So there's a misconception sometimes in our community that those sorts of things are not emphasized. In Prescott Unified School District, the opposite is the case. So we're excited about celebrating Veterans Day together. And then my sad piece that I have to report is this. Every year we play Bradshaw Mountain High School in football, and I can't remember the total number of times, about 25 different times, Mr. Navy, 25, 28, and we've won about 22 of those games, but we've lost 6 of them, including the one this year. And so I was on the wrong end of a friendly wager, and my punishment is I have to wear this for the rest of the meeting. So I'll be putting this on now. If any of you see Mrs. Griffin from Humboldt Unified School, this is too small for me. Humboldt Unified School, it is.
They did that on purpose.
You did that.
You can tell her that I bit the bullet. Nancy, please don't take a picture. All right, so if I get a little too hot, I might need to take it off prematurely for health and safety reasons. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to bring up is on our last slide. As you are aware, our school district was honored recently by the state of Arizona for having 4 distinguished schools, A letter grades, and 2 highly performing schools, B letter grades. We're super excited about that. I've mentioned to you before, it's not a system I love. Boiling everything a school does down to 1 letter grade is a fraught situation. And the things that they emphasize and overemphasize in some cases, not really fond of, but we've kind of figured out how to play the game, so to speak. They make us play the game, so we wanted to play to win. And it, in K through 8, grades K through 8, it relies entirely upon your performance on statewide tests and your growth on statewide tests. So between the 2 of those, we had Taylor Hicks Elementary, Abaya Judd Elementary, Lincoln Elementary, and Granite Mountain Upper Elementary School that were all A's. I did a little bit of digging, and I think I can't remember if I reported this to the board or not, but of 227 districts in Arizona, the total number of districts where all of their elementary schools had A's was 3. It was Catalina Foothills down in Tucson, a very wealthy part of the state, Cave Creek down in the Phoenix area, another very wealthy part of the state, and Prescott, Arizona, where we have a lot of wealthy people, but we also have if you're well off in Phoenix, you live in Cave Creek or Scottsdale, whatnot. If you're not, you live someplace else. If you're well off in Prescott, you live in certain parts of Prescott. If you're not, you live in other parts of Prescott. We've got them all, and we have a whole spectrum of families and kiddos, and we're one of only 3 districts in the entire state that had all of our elementary schools with A grades, which is awesome. I also looked at the total number of LEAs, I'm going on too long as usual, sorry, local education authorities. There were 596 of them that received letter grades, so districts or charters that received letter grades. The majority of them were single school districts or charters, right? So if you only have 1 school in your charter, American Heritage Academy in Cottonwood or whatever grade that school got, a C, that's their district's grade, a C or a B or whatever it happens to be. So setting those aside, of those 596 districts that got grades, there were only 19 in the entire state that had 2 or more schools that received grades at all, that came out with a letter grade of A for the district. And Prescott was one of them that puts us in the top 3% of districts in that respect in the entire state. So we're pretty excited about that. And it gives us some good factual information to share when people say, oh, I don't think your district's performing as well as you should. We say, okay, well, that's an interesting piece of information you've got. Here's some facts from the state about how they view that. So we're pretty excited, very, very pleased with the work that our kids have done, our teachers have done, and our principals have done to get us to this point. I'm looking forward to more good things as we go forward. And that's it.
Thank you.
Great job.
Well, I'm kind of overheating here.
Yeah.
I think for health and safety reasons,
That's
we
right,
shouldn't
that's
have
right.
to
Well-
wear that anyway, but. Okay, next item is governing board member reports. Are there any reports from our board members?
That shouldn't
Not much. I'm only in several teacher closets I've conducted in the last month. I'm hearing some good things about science with the new curriculum and the teachers getting started with the lessons. They seem pretty happy.
Great,
So generally speaking, I'm hearing good things.
thank you.
Thank you. I attended the site council meetings
Oh, great.
at Lincoln, Mile High, and Taylor Hicks, and listened to the presentation on the trilateral goals that each school was coming up with. I was a little disappointed to hear that it's not a required thing to have here in Arizona, a site council meeting. And that was confusing to me because I did see last year that it was on the website. Every school was giving those meetings. I didn't get to attend them because I wasn't on the board then, but I don't know if Granite Mountains, Abaya Judd, or Prescott High School had their presentation, but school site council meetings are really important community outreach because it's a couple members of the community, whomever wants to attend, the administrator, teachers, PTA members. It's a real good mix, and you really get to see what's going on in the schools. So I was hoping to attend more of those, but I guess schools aren't buying into it too much, so I don't know.
I can provide a little extra context. So just one correction, it is required by law, but it's not required to happen at a certain interval. It's not required to happen every month, for instance. So our schools tend to do that about on a quarterly basis based on the amount of participation we have and the number of agenda items that come up. Mr. Neely, you've had one this year already, have you not, Site Council, or do you have it scheduled? 2 so far. So yeah, you mentioned that you haven't seen one from PHS, but they've had 2 already and they'll have more going forward.
Where are they announced? Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead,
Publicly
please. Yeah.
posted.
On your newsletter that you put out, or?
Well, yeah, they're posted. Actually, usually Sarah puts them out for us when we have an agenda, and she posts them for us. But yeah, we've had 2. I believe I had one in August and one in October, and we'll probably have one again end of November or early December. So we actually have them a little more than.
More frequently than quarterly
I
at the high
really
school.
appreciate that. It is nice to have the community involved in that.
And before you were a board member, of course, as you've mentioned, you were welcome to have attended then too. Any community member can attend. The folks that you mentioned are the folks that are required to attend, but then we invite parents to do that. The information's put out in newsletters typically, and then Sarah posts them because they're
On the website.
subcommittees of the board, yeah, on our website. They're publicly posted and noticed meetings, so. yeah.
Thank you.
But I appreciate you going to those and bringing back that feedback.
Other reports?
Yeah, a couple things. So we've had fall sports ending here, and got to see the football and volleyball games, and boy, our kids really put forth some great efforts, especially against our Bradshaw teams, which obviously were not victorious, but even in volleyball, but great nonetheless. Mountain biking.
Should have made a bet on the badminton team.
That's what I'm saying. Badminton, cross country, mountain biking, yeah, they all did very well. And now we're heading into basketball and wrestling. We're going to hear from the wrestling coach and what else? Soccer. Cold soccer season, right? So Lincoln School did have their annual Halloween walk around the square. How many years have they been doing that? 100 years, right? That's what I say.
Give or take.
I mean, it is
They're
unbelievable.
old kids.
Yeah. My wife did it when she was there, so it was unbelievable. So, and then afterwards, they had a flag ceremony where they recognized students as self-starters per grade, and I'll do a little plug for my son TJ for getting one, so I was really proud of him. Also, first grade is doing a veterans recognition show, if you will. They'll be singing some American themed songs, and they each have a line, and but I won't make it because I've been asked to speak at Granite Mountain for their veterans ceremony. So lots going on as well. And then I'm glad that you did mention the high school, the honor roll. That is a tremendous thing that if anyone wants to go see something that our schools do, go up to the high school in the front lobby. It's unbelievable. And they do stand guard all day long. And one other plug about a distinguished honor unit for the JROTC, that does give Prescott High School the ability to nominate a student to any one of our academies, up to 2 students. Is that right, Adam? So it's not just the unit award. It really adds something, and we've had quite a few people that have attended the military academies because of that.
I think we've had 13 PHS students in the last 15 years go to one of our military academies, which again, that may be the most of any school our size in the United States of America.
Very proud of that. So, and if you're at the Veterans Day parade on Saturday, I'll be emceeing it. So honored to do that. So if you're at the base of Union Street in Cortez, you'll see myself, Eli Crane, and then the mayor will be speaking.
Nice.
Thank you.
Mr. Frere, do you mind, I should have asked earlier, do we have other veterans here in the audience this evening? We can honor you as well. Mr. Napier, thank you for your service. That's great, both of you. Fantastic.
Okay. Just real quickly, I was able to attend a CTE presentation, and we're going to have actually Ms. Bailey on the agenda next month, I believe, to give us an update on new CTE programs that they're proposing. It was great to have the whole group in there, and I believe next month we're also scheduling a tour of facilities with CTE, so for the board members and the administration. So I would encourage us all to take part in that. the 11th, is that the date? It's on our calendars, it was sent out, so. I also was able to visit with Mr. Neely 4 classes last Thursday, an Algebra 1 for freshmen, and then we had an Algebra 2 honors class. We also visited a physics class with a first-year teacher, a chemistry class with a first-year teacher, and we visited AP psychology. And just all of those classes, it was a whole mix of ability levels and strategies, but all of those teachers sat down, got eye to eye with those students, and really helped them understand. It was just amazing to see the care that they took with their students and what they did to help make that subject matter come alive. So I left there super impressed. We also met with 2 students from Germany who were here on the exchange and their sponsors from Germany as well. So that was a great program they were visiting for the last day. And the thing, I guess I'll say it, is they talked about how tough it was for some of them to spend time at Bradshaw, but they loved spending time at Prescott. Did they really say that? So,
They really said that?
yeah, they did.
Nancy Bradshaw is spelled B-R-A.
So, yeah, just really great. And also on our A grades, I just want to say that, it's a disappointment on some levels that one of our grades dropped when every other metric but one improved. And
At that school.
at that school. But this one metric that dropped was a function of the number of students that we have in the program, which increased from last year to this year. So it doesn't seem really fair, if you want to use that term. I mean, they are the rules that we live under, and so we had to do it. But went from an A to a B, so we can't be too disappointed in that. Just that, every other metric improved. And there was one area that we didn't. And
Their test scores went up, PHS's test scores went up, PHS's Career and College Readiness Index went up, but the English language learners, we had 9. What we're referring to is 2 years ago, we only had 9.
Yeah.
At a threshold of 10, they start to count them, and we had 12 this last year, and so they counted those 12 students' grades as part of the overall grade, letter grade, that we get. Super important thing to focus on for sure, but unfortunately, that ended up being, I think we calculated it, 21% of our entire grade was based on how those students did on their tests, and we didn't do a very good job getting them to move along, so that's an area of focus for us. It gives
Right.
us something to focus on. If everybody's A's all the time, we kind of scratch our heads and say, what do we do next? So we know what to do next.
yeah. So I want to thank Mr. Neely for taking me around to visit those classes. Thank the teachers especially. They were fantastic.
So if I'm understanding correctly, of the 4 classes that you're describing, I think we had 3 teachers that were in their first 2 years with us, is that right?
Yeah.
And then probably a 17 or 18-year veteran with us.
Yes.
The fact that you were so impressed is really a testament to one of the many things that Mr. Neely does well. He is a terrific leader at PHS, but one of the things he does well is identify talent, recruit them, and hire them. We've got some terrific newer teachers at PHS, which is fantastic.
And it was a complete as well. The teachers were not prepared for me to come into the classroom. They weren't prepared for Mr. Neely to pop into the classroom. So to see a first-year teacher who's not much older than his students have the control and the ability to create an environment in that class for those students in a difficult subject, I was blown away. So,
He's in the Keystone program as well.
yeah,
Wow.
so just great. So thank you.
Which means he's still working on his actual teacher certification. He's got his bachelor's degree in chemistry, but is still working on the teacher certification piece of it in our district.
Yeah, that's good. And that's all the reports. Student representatives, do we have reports today?
So first of all, I'd like to start off with, as I think it's been mentioned previously, fall sports are ending, but just some specific shout outs there because I think
Yeah.
they're in order. It's my understanding that Jackson Rice has now thrown for the most yards out of any Prescott High School quarterback.
All right.
And alongside that, I believe our golf team, our sectional champions, our mountain biking team took 5th in the state, but within that, it's my understanding that Blue Taylor won his category as the state overall. And then it probably biggest of all, Riley Crockett is the D2 badminton state champ. And then, I guess on a more boring note, it's the PSAT was taken in October for all PHS students that choose to take that, and I believe those scores will be or are currently. It's unclear. I did inquire, but that's a touchier one. And it's my understanding that those scores will be coming out soon.
Great.
And then finally, I just want to comment because I am in AP Psych, and then Mr. Fury is the new chemistry teacher, and I just wanted to offer that as a student. I would also say that's not just a one day, Mr. Neely walked in, I should be on my best behavior. I think that at least Miss Cherry and Mr. Fury are both consistently caring and great teachers throughout.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And on the other side of things, the drama department had their Young Artist Showcase and a play entitled The First Day of School that, as to my understanding, was written by the drama department. They also had their Dark Space interactive experience that showcased the new sound system, and the new light system was just put in. There's a new program for the special needs students at PHS that is in the works that collaborates with the drama and choir departments.
Neat.
That provides a performance opportunity. Several PHS students competed in Golf Special Olympics this past weekend. Abaya Judd is in the middle of their character counts assemblies. And over at Early College, a lot of kids are getting into scholarship season, and a lot of students are receiving scholarships. I think that, as far as I'm aware, we've had 11 kids apply to NAU, and 9 of them have received the Lumberjack. And we're in the last month of the semester. We're preparing for finals, and we have chosen our classes for next semester.
Excellent.
All right, thank you. Any other board reports to give? Okay. Thank you, everybody. The next item is our consent agenda. Are there any questions about the items on the consent agenda or comments about the items on the consent agenda?
Do you have anything?
Go ahead. You
Okay.
let me go first last time.
All right, fair enough. Okay. I do want to recognize the donations, and I do like to do this because it does show a lot of support from the community. So a donation from Philip Stewart, combined lot of auto fluids, estimated worth of $300 to our PHS Auto Shop program. A donation from Paul Hicks, Dr. Paul Hicks, for $100 to the Can Do Award. A donation from Mike Fogel, wooden platforms with an estimated worth of $300 to the PHS Drama Program. Donation from the First Congregational Church, a $100 check to the Can Do Award. Donation from Patricia Watson, 2 sets of golf clubs and bags with an estimated worth of $300 to the golf program at PHS. Donation from Pamela Dehaney, a small table saw and miter saw with an estimated worth of $400 to PHS. I'll save the biggest for last here. The donation from Yavapai Title Agency for $500 to the PHS drama program. Another one to the drama program for $500 from Valhalla Exterminator. And then Hair by Joey also donated $500 to the drama program. And then a donation from the Yavapai County Farm Bureau, a check in the amount of $500 to the PHS, the PUSD Farm to School program. And then the Kiwanis Club of Prescott donated a check in the amount of $6,750 for Taylor Hicks School.
Nice.
For a garden, yeah, they're gonna garden.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Any other consent agenda items?
Well, I was gonna bring that up because I'm a new member of the Kiwanis, so I was
Great.
pleased about that. But I want to really encourage the public that we got everything from golf balls and golf clubs for our kids to auto club and the oil and antifreeze and then as big as all the other ones were. How do we accept donations from the public?
Mr.
what
Moore?
is done with that? Mr. Binder, do you do? Oh,
Mr. Moore.
oh, yes.
Oh, you.
Would you like to? No, Mr. Binder? Donations come in the form of either monetary or stuff. And so usually at the sites, someone who thinks a site may benefit from an item, they propose it to that school, and the school says yes, and then they let us know the value, the donor's information, and then it becomes official PUSD property when you vote on it as a yes on the consent agenda.
Okay, I'm just concerned because the Kiwanis seem to know how to do it, and I think they're going to, if you were at the football game, the high school football game where they were setting up that platform that the band leader was, it almost fell on them. So I think they were talking about maybe donating something to that. And I have a table saw, a circular saw that I'd like to donate. So I have some power tools too that would be nice to
The
donate.
administrator would look at the items and see whether or not, we like to say yes to all donations. And then sometimes things are donated that we're not going to use. And so we either say thank you and then we find another home for it, or we just say PUSD doesn't need that. So anyway, so a power saw or tools, Mr. Neely can talk to you and see whether it's something that, probably not at Taylor Hicks, I wouldn't donate those.
No, I
so-
wouldn't suggest that. Yeah.
But high school maybe.
Yeah. The other thing is, on the consent agenda, is I noticed that we had some resignations. And I had mentioned last year that I was interested in exit surveys. And I'd like those included in some board communications, if you would, please, so that we have an idea of the complexion of our staff, too.
Yeah, I reviewed the exit interview responses, and I'd be happy to kind of bring a summary of some of those responses to the board.
Okay, great.
Other questions or concerns? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move.
See, you go again.
Been
first.
moved.
I'll go second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And that motion passes. Okay, moving on to our study and voting session. Ms. Torres, has there been any requests to speak? Okay. Our first item is an international travel request from Mr. Adam Neely to Rome, Italy, and Athens, Greece, as presented.
All right, well, thank you for having me, you guys. Back to talk about more of these exciting trips for our kiddos. It's become a real popular thing going on. So you guys have already approved the ones for this school year, so we're already talking about next school year. Spring break 2025, the request is to go to Rome, Italy, Athens, Greece, and it would be from March 9th through the 16th. So it's packed in that spring break time frame with a little travel time on each end. It'll be the same that it's been, somewhere between 15 and 70 students with a chaperone for every 6 kids is the way that they've been doing this, and it's been really successful. They've had some fun trips, and let's see, they're going to Scotland this spring break, and I believe they're going to Peru this summer, and then so talking about these next ones.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Neely?
Yes, I do. I'm concerned with the unrest in the world, all over the world right now, and I question why. Now, this is Catherine Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't she a science teacher? Why are they going to Rome and Athens and?
It has nothing to do with science. She's really kind of like the sponsor for this group, and then she recruits other chaperones to go through and do it. So she's just one of the kind teachers willing to supervise these types of trips and take us through.
I think she's done it before, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's the one who's run all of the ones that we've had
She
so
does it
far
all
in the
the
last
time.
few years.
And about how many kids have gone? It looks like this particular trip is about a $4,000 piece trip for each child or student, and maybe 5,000 for each chaperone. And I know they're going to do some fundraising, but I still worry about all the unrest. You know, France has put an advisory out, Greece, Spain too, with violent protests and social unrest, and
United States.
this is my map of the world, and I charted all of them, and they're everywhere. In Peru, no, but Colombia, surrounding the Galapagos, which is next on your request, but
Right.
Mexico. And I really worry about us sending our children into areas like that where it could be dangerous.
No, I completely understand where you're coming from. What I do really like about this is that this is a company who will cancel a tour if they see any reason to believe that there is concern. So I feel much more comfortable with that piece, and that's what they've been running. They run these tours all over the world with all sorts of different groups, and so this EF company has done very well for us. So I think with the history of it, I felt good about that, but I completely understand where you're coming from.
Ava, do you have a question?
Just a comment really fast. I've had friends who have gone on these trips. Last year they went to Japan, and they're students who sometimes otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to internationally travel. And I personally haven't gone on one of these trips, but if I were to, and the trip were to get canceled, I would appreciate the fact that I know that it would be taken as an educational opportunity to update all the students on the current events in the world.
And we're big on parents' rights as well, so we
Yes.
typically like to let the parents decide whether or not they send their kids on different activities, including these.
What does the refund policy look like with them? If they do cancel it, there's a travel advisory.
If the company cancels it, it's fully refunded.
Great. Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, you guys?
I know that EF is a well-respected organization. I've worked with them in the past, and they do the best by their participants, for
We've
sure.
gotten a lot of great feedback from the trips prior.
Yeah.
So our kids and chaperones have really enjoyed the trips, along with
Yeah.
some families and parents who've gone as chaperones. So
Yep. Yeah.
we've had some good trips. I think that something's leading to it being popular.
Yeah.
These are open to parents as well, right?
Yes,
As you've mentioned.
absolutely.
If parents are interested, they can go along. If they want to just send their kids, they can do that. If they say, you know what, I worry about unrest in the world, which is a legitimate concern, parents can make those decisions for their families.
Okay.
That's correct.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay. All right, so can we have a motion to approve an international travel request from Mr. Adam Neely, PHS Principal, for students and chaperones to travel to Rome, Italy, and Athens, Greece, as presented?
I make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Next is a second international travel request from Mr. Neely for students and chaperones to travel to the Galapagos Islands.
Yep, sorry, stuck with me one more time here. So I would tell you that I love the fact that they're trying to get out ahead of this so far, and so this is another example of being organized and trying to communicate those. But again, talking about travel to the Galapagos Islands, this one would be a summer trip. So this one is July 8th through the 16th, though again, they adjust these accordingly. Same number of kids and same scenario with chaperones. So every 6 students, making sure they have a chaperone for that.
Okay. Questions about this one? No? Okay. Can we have a motion to approve an international travel request from Mr. Adam Neely, PHS Principal, for students and chaperones to travel to the Galapagos Islands as presented?
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Neely.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thanks, Al.
Okay, our next item is to consider approving an out-of-state travel request from Mr. Sam Shapiro to take his student athletes to the Reno Tournament of Champions. Mr. Shapiro.
Hi there. My name's Sam Shapiro. I'm the head wrestling coach at Prescott High School. And this year I'd like to take some of our upperclassmen, our juniors and seniors, to the Reno Tournament of Champions. And that will be December 14th through the 17th.
How many students? I mean, it says here 3 to 5. Is
Yeah,
that?
approximately 3 to 5. You never really know how, it's in the middle of our season, so we don't know who's going to have grades and injuries, but that's about how many upperclassmen we have on the team currently.
Okay. And are these students, have they achieved something to get invited to this tournament, or is there some qualification?
There is no qualification for this tournament. These are two of the wrestlers that I have in mind are state placers.
Okay.
Most of them wrestle year round. They go to summer camps and off-season tournaments. They worked with me through the summer in a weight training program that we did. They've been involved in all of our activities. This is kind of one of the strongest groups we've had with the wrestlers, and I'd say the last 8 years. Well, that's how long I've been coaching at the high school. And so we haven't done any out-of-state tournaments during that time that I've been there, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to kind of really take them to a major tournament. This is supposed to be one of the toughest tournaments in the United States.
Okay.
And a couple of these boys are looking at wrestling in college, so this would be a great experience for them to see what the level looks like.
Other questions?
Only question I might have had is, you probably can't answer this at this point, but do you anticipate some of the parents wanting to go as well?
I do. So right now I know it'll be at least me and my assistant coach, Coach Baxter, and then most likely the Lloyds. I don't know if you guys know David Lloyd.
Yeah,
I'm sure David Lloyd will be there, and possibly Rick Rewerts, who's another father.
And cost-wise, how are we looking at covering the cost?
Everything will be paid for through the Booster Club.
Okay.
Yeah.
Including the travel, the vans,
The van.
or
Yep.
however, your transportation?
Yeah, so we're planning on taking a 15-passenger van, and then we'll be in a hotel 2 nights. The tournament has an agreement with the Silver
Legacy.
Thank you. The Silver Legacy hotels there, and there's 3 of them, so they have an agreement with the hotel chain. We'll be staying at one of the hotels, and then the students will be in charge of paying for their own food. And if anybody's not able to, we can cover that through the booster. We had a very good fundraising season.
Okay, great. All right. Other questions?
So Sam, this is right before finals, right? Right. Is that, we're going to have study hall, study sessions there as well?
Yes,
Oh,
we will.
sure.
We're actually opening up a study hall for the kids. We're probably going to bump practice back, so we're going to have a study hall going forward for the team as it is starting next week.
You're a great coach, Sam, and I appreciate you even taking this on, right before the semester ends and going into the holiday. And I know this is outside your season, so appreciate you taking your time to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, pretty cool. Anything else for Mr. Shapiro?
I'm glad you brought up the Booster Club because we really need public support of our booster clubs. I'd really like to encourage more people to get involved and just donate to those.
Yeah, me too.
Okay?
We have a great booster club. For the wrestling team, they've done a lot for us. They've helped us out with every tournament, providing any additional resources that we need while we're at tournaments, everything like that. So we are thankful for that, for the support they give us.
Anything else? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve an out-of-state travel request from Mr. Sam Shapiro, head wrestling coach at Prescott High School, to take 3 to 5 student athletes to the Reno Tournament of Champions, December 14th through 17th, 2023, as presented?
I'll make that
So
motion.
moved.
We're going to step on each other.
Okay.
We'll roast on both.
Okay.
So one of you moved and one of you seconded?
Right.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks, Coach.
Linda will do that.
Okay. Our next item, I'm going to explain, I believe we need to make a quick amendment to this motion, is to consider adopting the proposed changes in Policy Services Advisory Volume 35, Number 3, numbers 748 to 752, and 754 to 762. The reasoning for that is because item number 753 is policy CBI, which involves the evaluation of the superintendent. And we are going to remove, it was included in your packet, but we're removing that ASBA wording from this approval because we are going to approve or vote to approve separately our own wording on policy CBI. Does that make sense? Okay. So are there any other questions about this item? Do we need to vote on the change to this motion? Okay.
I think it's probably included, even the way that it's written, but if you want to separate it out like that, that makes it even more clear, and you could certainly do it that way.
Okay. So I will make a motion to change the wording on this item to, as I said, consider adopting the proposed changes in Policy Services Advisory, Volume 35, Number 3, number 748 to 752, and 754 to 762 from September 2023, and the proposed policy, and I'll do this second one separately. So the first item is number 748 to 752 and 754 to 762.
Well,
You
this
made the
is
motion,
the-
right?
I've made that motion.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion
Yes.
about that? Okay.
Questions about anything? Yeah, for sure.
Why are we changing so much policy, and who's concerned about changing them? Why is this?
Great question. So we went over this actually in our last meeting when we had our board retreat. These are all in response to legislative changes. So why are we changing so many? Because they all are currently out of line with new state law that will come online at the end of this month, and this will put them in line with new state legislation. And who wants us to change them? State legislature.
So you are making the policy changes, or is this recommended by our council?
Yeah,
Or
Good question. So it's the board that will be making policy changes, to be clear, but the recommendations are coming through the Arizona School Boards Association Policy Advisory subscription service that we have. They take a look at all of the new legislations that's been passed in Title 15 of the Arizona Revised Statutes, which are the education laws, and they say, okay, which of the copyrighted or model policies that we have out in the state would need to be amended based on that, and then their legal team recommends amendments, and we went over the first reading of these again three and a half weeks ago, so about 3 weeks ago, I guess it was, at our board retreat.
No, it was only 19 days.
Okay, not 3 weeks, 19 days, sorry, 19 days ago at our board retreat, and asked the board to get back with us on any questions they've got. And now's a good time to do that too, so if you've got any specific questions, we
Yeah,
can go.
I'd like to postpone this or table it until either the December 5th meeting or later, because I'm in the process of going through, and I discovered I had mentioned to Sarah Torres that none of the links worked. And so ASBA had to fix those links, which delayed me doing the work that I'm doing. So not only that, but there is so much in here. There's 13
several.
or
Yeah,
14,
yeah, you're right.
like today's vote. there's a lot to go over, and I'm matching up things also myself that I would like that postponed or tabled, whatever you want to say.
May I?
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, that's absolutely reasonable. Your reasoning is reasonable. I'll suggest a couple of things for the board to consider before you determine if a majority of you want to table it or not. One is that, as I've suggested, these are all linked to new state statutes, new laws that we have to follow. Those laws will become effective as of November 30th, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Our next board meeting's not until after that, so we would be behind that. Now, it's very unlikely we'd be in a situation in a 6-day window or whatever it is that would bite us. But if we want to be ahead of things instead of behind things, we probably ought to do it on the recommended timeline. The links that you mentioned were links to Arizona revised statutes, and without being able to click on that right away, you can certainly have found those revised statutes by just Googling. You know, it says 15-301, you could type in 15-301, so that information has been available, though it wasn't as convenient as clicking immediately. You're right about that. And just finally, you're right, there's a lot of these. The legislature every year is looking for reasons to keep themselves employed, I think, and they love changing education law. Most of these are very minor changes, but some of them are substantive, and we went over those 19 days ago. And if you need more time, that's absolutely reasonable to make that motion. And if the board, as a majority, says, yeah, we should hold off, great.
I think we're a little bit out of order, so I think first we need to vote on the separation of these items.
Oh,
And then we can discuss your motion to table. Does that
okay,
make
is there
sense?
anything Brian needs to, because one of them is the annual budget, DB. I don't know if you need to pull that or, okay.
So it's been moved and seconded that we separate these two items. Taking out policy CBI number 753
Oh, yeah.
from this.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do that first. All those in favor of that separation? Do I need to say it again, what we
No.
were voting on? Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, so that motion has passed. So now we have policy number 753 removed from this discussion. Now, Ms. Khan, do you have a motion that you'd like to make on this first part of the items here?
Yes, I'd like to, for the remainder of them, I would like to table, I'd like to make a motion to table until the next meeting or later.
Okay.
Any of the remaining, whatever they are.
Considering
Policy.
adoption of the policies first.
Okay. So there's been a motion to table the adoption of the policies 748 to 752 and 754 to 762. Is there a second for that?
I will second to
Okay.
give Linda more time.
Thank
All right.
you.
It's been moved and seconded.
Discussion.
Discussion, yeah, on tabling this item.
So just to be clear, we would then look at this on December 5th,
Our next meeting is the
3rd, 5th.
I think it's the 5th.
Okay.
I believe it's the 5th.
It is, it's the 5th.
Yes, the
Okay.
fifth.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, we've received a lot of information during the retreat, and so if we need more time, I'd be in favor of that.
I'm concerned about waiting and having the legislation go into effect and our policies be out of date.
To be clear, we'll still have to follow these policies as written, whether you, as a board, vote on time to adopt them or not. If one of these situations came up, we will have to follow that law. On the 5th, if you all decide, I don't like 758 or whatever for some reason, we're still going to have to follow that law, whether the board adopts that as a policy or not. It's really more of a ministerial piece
So
than it is
correct
an
me if I'm
opinion
wrong,
piece.
but these are all determined by the legislature.
Correct,
So
yeah.
it doesn't really matter whether we decide we
Correct.
don't like 7.
Yeah, you're not actually
52.
being asked for your opinion
We're not
about
asking,
the
they're
policy.
not asking
No,
us for opinion. As
That,
a
that
board,
said,
we
if you
can't
find
judge.
something in the wording that you feel like,
Right.
well, it looks like the law has changed to say this, I can think of a better way than these lawyers came up with to word it or whatnot, we
Then
can
we could
absolutely
reword it.
talk about that.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, we
potentially legitimate. but
customize it to suit
Sometimes we
our
do that. It would be,
school district.
absolutely, yeah, there's a possibility of that. It'd be an unusual scenario, but it's possible.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay. All those in favor of tabling this item, please say aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. The motion passes 3-2. So we will table this item until December 5th. Sarah, would you make sure we have that on the item? So the second part of this then is changes to the proposed policy CBI, which is number 753, evaluation of superintendent.
And the previous date on that was September 1st, and the ASBA is recommending it be November 10th, and I believe that that's the wording that we've got for you. At the end of the cycle, they say that you shall schedule a meeting not later than March 30th for the evaluation. And the consensus opinion, I believe, at the board retreat was the school year is not over at that point. It's really hard to evaluate how well the superintendent has achieved her or his goals at that point. So the board's recommendation at that point was to change the proposed wording. And this is a good example of what Linda was just talking about, to May 15th. That's not per statute. There is no legal timeline per statute. It's up to us, basically. But in this case, the board's being asked to have it be November 10th that we come up with the evaluation instrument each year. And again, we talked about let's roll with whatever we come up with, so we're not reinventing the wheel every year, but we do the evaluation itself by May 15th. It gives you another month and a half to take care of that, and probably on a timeline that better suits your needs. The other piece that is recommended as a change is that in the first year, the superintendent essentially not be held to that evaluation instrument. And the recommendation of the consensus opinions, and I think of the board, was to strike that language so that it would be, that there'd be an evaluation the first year as well.
So it's only a date change?
It's only a
and
date change we're looking at with this,
exiting
ultimately.
that language?
Yeah.
For this one policy. This is just for this one
Right,
policy.
for CBI.
Yeah. So
And,
what it would, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what it would do is take the copyright notice off of that CBI policy that we received from ASBA so that they would know, and we would know, that this was our wording on this policy as opposed to the proposed wording that was given for this.
That's where we're putting in for the performance pay? Is that
That's a
the
separate
part?
issue.
That's a
little
separate,
later. Yeah.
that's a
That's
separate one.
separate, okay.
Yeah, this is just the superintendent evaluation policy date.
Essentially the timing of it, that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Other questions? Okay. So can we get a motion to approve the proposed PUSD changes to policy CBI, evaluation of superintendent, as presented?
I will make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? And that motion passes. So CBI with the PUSD changes is approved. And we will table the others for next meeting. Okay, thank you. Okay. So the next item then is to consider approving the superintendent evaluation instrument, which Ms. Torres did forward to all of us and asked for feedback. I know that I found some typos and have suggested those changes. I'm not sure if anybody else has submitted changes or suggestions to her. Are there discussion items, things that we would like to see in this superintendent evaluation instrument, other issues that we need to discuss right now?
Yes. I did bring it up at our October 19th meeting that I was disappointed with the existing questions. Some of them are just absolutely, what's the word I can use? the one I brought up in that meeting was, it has a good sense of humor. I think that I have asked for some measurable goals so that we can really give a good evaluation rather than a 5-point. We all know you have a nice sense of humor. So I don't think you should be evaluated on that. I am working on some what they call SMART goals. And they are measurable, specific, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So I would like to have the evaluation at a different time. I would like some kind of update on you achieving these goals. And I'm trying to write them. I'd like to invite any of the board members who would recommend any kind of changes to this document to submit them. But I got stuck on doing the other issue, trying to get that done. So I do want to continue working on that document, and I'm not ready to vote on it tonight.
I think Clark gave us his
Right.
goals,
Right.
so we don't have to reinvent any goals.
Well, have you read the goals?
He gave them to us the other
Yeah,
day.
we've all read
It was
them.
very
We've all read through them.
extensive.
Yep.
They're
And
not measurable,
we did separate part of his bonus into a measurable goal.
Yes.
So I don't think we have to have measurable goals in this other part.
And I would just put in, they're definitely measurable. You can easily, on a rubric of 1 to 5 or 1 to 26 or whatever you want, measure how well I've achieved the very specific goals that I've shared with you. So you may recall our discussion from 19 days ago at our board retreat. The consensus among board members was that you wanted to stick with the evaluation instrument format that is there, and there's a one part of it is a rubric that's pre-written, and we asked for feedback on that. You're exactly right, Linda. One of the descriptors under, I can't remember what it is, professional qualities, there we go, has a sense of humor. If you don't like that, board members were asked to recommend deletions or additions or changes to the rubric, but the consensus among the 5 board members, not less than 3 weeks ago, I've been told, is that we would keep the format of the evaluation instrument as is. And then the first part of that would be my specific goals for the year. The second part would be the professional obligations that are in there, and the third part would be a narrative. And if you want to reopen that discussion, what was decided by the 5 of you 3 weeks ago, you can do that, I suppose, but that comes as a surprise to me.
Yeah, and just doing this, voting on this is not something that has to be done, actually. The superintendent can send us their evaluation instrument and we use it. So this isn't a statute-based evaluation. So we did agree on the 19th of October that we were going to stick with this. We can edit that document. So if we want to remove the sense of humor question, I'm perfectly open to that suggestion.
That's not the only thing in this. Who wrote this? I mean, it was, keeps the board informed on issues. Great, that's good. This is a big ticket item, this performance pay that we're judging this whole issue on. And I did not do the one for Joe Howard because I did not work with him. So community relations, these are so.
So I think we have agreed to this format. If you need more time to look at the specific wording on some of them.
I do.
That would be accessible. Do we need to pass this today?
We could move to table this as well.
As long as you understand that it's
But-
the same format, and all you're doing is maybe rewording some of the columns, because we did agree to this
Yeah.
format.
And we need to get that information to Sarah.
Yeah,
I mean, if you have suggestions, that needs to go to Sarah so that it can be included in the motion to change.
I'm
So-
working on that, but yeah, I would like to do that. So do I ask, I request that this be also tabled
I
then
think-
with CBI?
To me, that sounds like what you're asking for is to table this motion for the next board meeting so that you have more time to do this.
I would like that.
Okay.
It's my understanding, though, that these are measurable in the fact that we give it a relevant rating
Right.
scale, but the pay performance is very different. That's based on a percentage.
Right.
There are a lot of these things you can't measure with a mathematical percentage. Like some of these ones you just mentioned as an example. We can't actually grade those percentage-wise, but we can put it on a rating scale. So I'm not sure what you're objecting to.
Okay.
But maybe this is not the time.
I don't know.
I think she's just
Well-
objecting to some of
To
the
some of the
words.
actual
wording.
The
columns.
wording of it,
The
or
titles.
or the,
See, I
yeah,
was under the
the-
impression we'd already voted
We-
on that.
Yeah, we're not
No.
voting to
Today
create
is-
a new instrument.
Correct, we're not
If-
going to change
if-
the instrument.
If board members need more time to review this, we can motion to table this and bring it up at the next meeting. So that, I think right now is the question. So there's been a motion to table this item for more time to review
Thank you.
and make suggestions.
I will second because I failed to do my duty and read through it also.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we table this item. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, so that motion passes. So this item will be taken
Thank
up at the December 5th meeting. Mr. Tenney, I'm sorry that we don't have your evaluation instrument approved.
You will, at some point, approve it before I actually get evaluated,
The
yes?
day before you're evaluated,
Okay,
yes.
just want to make
Just
sure.
the day. You get
But
one day.
please,
We'll be halfway through the year at that point. If it gets tabled again, we'll be more than halfway through the year, et cetera. So I'd love to know exactly how
It
you're going to
will
evaluate
be
me
very
eventually.
similar, I believe. to
Super.
what it-
I would encourage all of us to please, over the next month, get your inputs in
Yeah, to Sarah.
to Sarah so that we can have a document to look at in the next packet. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is to consider approving an updated Exhibit A, the Governing Board Resolution on Superintendent's Employment Agreement. And this includes the items for approval under performance pay.
Okay.
So there is a difference with this. This is for that. The first evaluation is for the 3.5%. If the superintendent averages a 3 or above on their evaluation, their board evaluation, they receive the 3.5% performance pay. The additional 5% would be in this new contract piece, Amendment A, that is based on and tied to test scores, performance data for the district. It's been included in your packet. I'm just getting to that page right now. Sorry. Are there questions about that item in the board packet?
I am meeting with Renee Graber tomorrow to see why my discovery of the state test scores are different than what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that the cut scores are used. I'm still not sure what we are using because I have seen that 53% of our kids are below proficient in the AAS, whatever it is, ASA,
AASA?
Yeah, test that the State Board of Education publishes. And yet, I'm hearing that that is not what we use. So what are we using for that percentage for the math scores, which are lower for those kids, and the English language arts, where 50% of our kids are struggling, but we get an A grade from the state? It's like apples and oranges. So I don't have a regular measure that we're all going by for these things.
Didn't we vote on this at the, is this the
Yes.
second reading
This-
of this?
This is,
Second reading.
this is a change to the wording on the contract.
Oh, okay, so we
Because-
already agreed on the wording,
Yes.
and it's gonna be students that are FAY
Right.
full-time.
Yeah, you came to
academic
consensus
year.
on the wording at the board retreat.
Yeah.
There wasn't
Right.
any actual
We all
vote.
agreed it, and
you
so
said
now
you
we're
would
just
have an
putting
actual
it on
vote
your
at this meeting.
contract.
Right,
Okay.
and also the piece about, the board has the discretion to award pay even if some of these are not met, to award
Okay.
performance pay.
Okay.
So there is
So-
some wording.
Just ask Renee tomorrow to show you how to do it. It's a
So-
spreadsheet, and it's really simple to manipulate, and you click on the columns and you go, all the students, PUSD, all the tests are FYI, and then it gives
Right.
you a number, and that's the number that we're gonna use.
So
Is that correct?
where the district scores on these and the letter grade we receive isn't really relevant to this contract. What is relevant is if the number of FAY students increases their test scores.
Instead of
In those areas.
acronyms, can we, that's full, what is
Academic
it?
year,
Full
full
academic
academic
year.
year students.
Thank you.
Mr. Fair, would you like
Because I
me to
don't
read
think
the
anyone
wording?
understands all the acronyms that are used. So if we could talk
Okay.
in plain language, that would be nice.
So the three items, or the three items in consideration are on the document. Item number, Roman numeral 3, item B, if a higher percentage of full academic year students meet or exceed the proficiency threshold on statewide testing in English language arts in comparison to the prior school year, superintendent will receive 2% of the superintendent's annual base salary. Item C, if a higher percentage of full academic year students meet or exceed the proficiency threshold on statewide testing in math in comparison to the prior school year, superintendent will receive 2% of superintendent's annual base salary. Item D, if a higher percentage of full academic year students meet or exceed the proficiency threshold on statewide testing in science in comparison to the prior school year, student will receive 1% of the superintendent's annual base salary. Item E, if the superintendent fails to meet one or more of the criteria noted in A through D above, the board may, in its sole discretion, award performance pay in a lower amount or amounts. So basically, if the full academic year students' scores increase from one year to the next, the superintendent is eligible for that specific performance pay
Yeah.
item. If they don't, then we have the discretion to say, well, we feel that we're making progress, we can award less than this amount if we want, or the full amount if we choose to. So that is up to the board to determine, based on this contract wording. We've also included that the board and superintendent shall meet no later than May 15th annually to discuss what changes would come. So those are the changes to this document. Before, the document basically said, if scores increase, it didn't delineate it out to full academic year or anything else. Those
The
are the
board had asked for
changes.
additional clarification, so this was the language that we talked about at the retreat, and there was consensus that this was appropriate.
Did you have another?
No, just
I wanted-
exactly right. I think you nailed it on the head. It makes it very clear. Before, there was room for potential argument with a future board and a future superintendent. Well, what exactly do you mean by scores going up? This makes it abundantly clear exactly what you mean by that. Achievement data publicly released by ADE's Accountability Department in the fall, following spring test administrations, will be utilized for the purpose of determining achievement proficiencies within this performance-based pay plan. This data will include the subgroup of all students with full academic year status and all grade levels which are required to test during the test administration. Very, very specific about what we're talking about, which I appreciate, and all 5 of you mentioned 3 weeks ago that you appreciated it as well, and so we were going to vote on that tonight.
Yep. Are there other questions? Okay. Can we get a motion to consider approving an updated Exhibit A Governing Board Resolution Superintendent's Employment Agreement Performance Pay Plan as presented?
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And that motion passes. Okay. Our next item is number 7, to consider approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Vail Unified School District and Prescott Unified School District. Mr. Moore.
Yep.
You have items here.
Lots of reasons for an intergovernmental agreement. One of them is procurement, and this is actually what this is. We're asking the governing board to approve this IGA so we can enter into an agreement with Vail to provide a service to us in which we will pay for. It does exceed the $10,000 threshold in which we are required to justify the purchase and either getting quotes, having an IGA. If it is a sole, it could be a sole source if it's a unique product. In this case, Vail would be providing us with supplemental materials that will help our teachers deliver instruction. And we're asking the governing board to approve this IGA so we can enter into that agreement and pay them.
Okay. Questions on this?
I have one question.
Mhm.
We're getting quite a substantial discount from Vail for this purchase.
We are?
Can we assume that will happen every year?
Yes.
Okay.
Are these for math books or what kind of?
It's supplemental resources for our instruction.
Yeah. Not books at all.
No, this is not core curriculum.
It's if I can
Please.
speak a little bit on it, beyond textbook is an ability for teachers in particular to go on to any standard that they're being asked to teach. And that standard is what we call unwrapped, so it's easy for the teachers to read. It's set up on a calendar year with Vail. We might tweak that, that's my understanding, we might tweak the calendar of what specific standards are taught in what specific week. But what it will do for a teacher and for community members too is you can go on and see what standards being taught. You can see how Prescott's teaching it, and then for the teachers, there's an additional resource there of all other various ways to meet that standard within their classroom that they might feel the textbook that we're using isn't doing a particularly great job. So I think it's very beneficial for teachers. I can see it. I can see how it might make our digs look a tiny bit different, but I'm not sure about that. I'm assuming it will make our digs look different in that also the community will be able to go on and really deep dive into what standards being taught in second grade, and we gotta know where we are, 13, 14. Yeah. What standards being taught in second grade at this moment and how that standard's unwrapped and the teachers can really jump in. So it's not a textbook, but it's a tool that you can use as a teacher to grab a standard and say, I need to teach this standard in a different way because right now my kids aren't getting it. Does that make sense, Marty?
Yeah, that's
Really good
very,
way to
That's
describe it.
really good.
It was good. But once again, this vote is on the IGA, not the product.
Right.
We entered into an IGA, for example, with Skull Valley, and we were providing the service in which we were providing IT support, and we entered into the IGA, very specifically specified what's our responsibility, what's their responsibility, but really in essence, that IGA allowed them to pay another entity. We were the vendor, and they paid us, and they could only pay us because of the IGA, because what we were charging was over $10,000. Vail does the same thing, and in fact, I remember a presentation in 2007 on Beyond Textbooks. This is really something that they have experts and they've been doing a long time. I was curious, and they make over $1 million on this product within Arizona from other districts. So this is a voting item for you to say, yes, it is okay for us to spend over $10,000 with Vail.
And the only other question I have, and I already asked Kelsey, but I just want to hear it from your mouth. This is prorated, it's not going to commence as of July 1st, 2023? And end June 30th, 2024, because it's not July 1st, 2023 anymore.
No, it's not.
So just curious, because we're 4 months past that. Did I ask a question we don't?
No, you got great question.
No, it's a
Kelsey,
good-
can you
Kelsey, have
speak
you
to
talked
that?
about
Is the plan for
price for
prorated
this year?
this year with the discount? Are we
Since
looking
we're
at the full
starting,
amount
or is
this
that
year, even
included
though
in
we're
this?
partway into the school year?
Yes, so it's going to be, if that's the price moving forward every year, because we're getting such a substantial discount.
We're getting a huge discount.
Including this
so-
year, even though we're looking at a partial year, because
Okay.
there's an enormous
That makes
discount
that-
off what
and
they
that's
Yeah.
fine. That makes sense to
typically
me.
charge other districts for the same
Because
service.
We're getting
it's a,
some of the training this year and next year, so that training cost is spread
Yeah.
out, but yes.
I like the way you
I have-
think.
I have one question that was an excellent explanation. It says that this can be used for student assessment. So
we
can we
do.
get rid of that other assessment that we do at the beginning, the middle,
Maybe.
and the end?
Maybe, and possibly a presentation at a later time on, because it's not this.
I'd vote for that.
Talking
not-
about,
Galileo.
Cara, we are looking at that. We'd like to
Potentially.
take a look at these assessments to see if they would be more useful. And if they will be, then we would look at potentially getting rid of Galileo.
Thank you. I
Yes.
couldn't remember
that's
the
what I
name.
was wondering now, did you mean Galileo?
We do
Cluster?
not want to spend more
More
time assessing than
more.
instructing. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something we will look at.
Okay, but as of right now, we're just using it for the teachers to grab.
Analyze
and analyze
standards and use
Those
them.
unwrapped standards
coming
are
up with
extremely valuable for community, parents, teachers,
Different ways to
even
teach it.
students.
Okay.
It gives you a progression of what they should have learned last year, what they're learning in this grade level, what they need to know for the next year. It includes things like common misconceptions that students might have around this standard, which is, you know, you have to be a veteran teacher of 10 years to really get that data to know what common misconceptions kids might have about long division or whatever it is. This gives you that right there. So as a teacher, it really allows you to be an expert on the standards of what you need to teach, what they should already know, and what they need to know for the future. Those documents are really great tools, like Jane said.
Great.
I think it includes quarterly assessments as well, if I'm not
So
mistaken.
quarterly summative assessments,
Yes,
yes.
which-
And a formative assessment, so a
Correct, yeah.
5-question assessment per standard.
Yeah.
And that is for every core subject, K through 12. They also have lots of our electives and special areas that they have completed that would be looking at as well.
We want to dip into it this year and really see where can we use it and where can we pare down in other areas.
Okay, so we're just okaying it for 1 year, correct, at the moment?
I don't know, what's the terms on the
On the
IGA?
IGA?
It says to
Through
June 30th, 2024.
June 30th,
Impressed I
2024,
know
a year and a
that.
half?
Yeah. Then the IGA would have to be brought back to the board if we continue it in fiscal year 24, 25.
Okay.
So the rest of the school year.
Yep.
Yes, the rest of the school year.
We're pretty excited about the content
Yeah.
and the
Absolutely.
potential of the program, as you've heard, but tonight, that'll be a presentation in an
It's-
upcoming month for sure, but tonight we're just asking for the board's permission to enter a contract with another school district.
So we can pay
Yeah,
them.
and we know, so Vail, just what we saw on the retreat, they're a high-achieving school district in the state of Arizona, have been for many years.
They're one of those other 19 A school districts, but they didn't have all of their elementary schools get in, just saying.
Is
Maybe they should buy
Megan
some stuff from
Cap
us.
still a representative for them?
Yes.
That's where the discount comes, huh?
She's the one we're working with.
Make it known that that's a Prescott alumni.
Yeah.
Megan Cap. Well
Let's
done.
just, I'll just throw that out there, that we saw a presentation like 07, 08 on this when I was a principal, and it was awesome. And that's right when the recession hit, and we just had all of our capital taken away. They're charging us almost like 80% less than what they quoted us at that
Nice.
time. So this is this is awesome.
The one
they're-
comment I have, and I don't want to get into evaluation of the the item, but can somebody really briefly say how the students could potentially use this for their benefit? I'd like to know if students could access this information and somehow gain value
So
from
they
that.
probably cannot access the digital platform in the same way that a teacher can. However, for every standard, they have a rubric of how you would assess that student.
Okay.
All the way from, developing to highly effective. So you could give that to a student and say, where are you in your process of learning? Here's what you know, here's what
Okay.
we're working on. So
Okay.
it's very valuable to help them set very specific goals for themselves.
Okay.
Self-ed.
So when we get a presentation on this, if we approve this, then we can ask those questions at that point.
Yes, I'm excited to show that out to you.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Other questions or concerns about this IGA? All right. Could we have a motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement between Vale Unified School District number 20 and Prescott Unified School District as presented?
Heck, yeah.
That's a motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes.
I just had one clarification question. Is it, what kind of monies are we, are we spending COVID monies? One-time COVID monies?
No,
No? We have this amount of money?
yes.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay, our next item is to consider approving a joint resolution expressing concern and disapproval regarding the recent executive director appointment process conducted by the Executive Board of the Arizona School Boards Association. So I want to give some background on this. This was a resolution forwarded out to county superintendents from Tim Carter that past presidents of ASBA have put forth with concerns about the process in the selection of the executive director of ASBA. You may have seen some of this in the news. It's been reported that the current executive director falsified his resume. And so past presidents of ASBA are concerned about this. The executive board has acted in a way that was somewhat they, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, presented some intimidation tactics to some of the board members that caused them to resign as a result. So what the past presidents in the resolution that was forwarded to you in the packet are asking is school boards, as members of ASBA, to step forward and say, we disapprove of that action and want you to rectify this in whatever way they find appropriate. We can not act on this. We can approve it and forward it on to ASBA. I wanted to be sure that we had this so that it wasn't something that came up through the press or any other way, so that you knew what ASBA was dealing with, and we had a way to make our collective voice as a board heard. Does that make sense to
It
you?
does, and I read a lot about this in the last few days, probably more than I should have, but if we approve this tonight, what we're improving is that we're asking that another independent investigation be conducted into what might have been ill-conceived idea on his part to submit a false resume, which is what happened. So we're not voting as to whether or not the man is guilty, we're just voting to whether or not there should be an investigation into what he did and into how some of the present board members perhaps used intimidation tactics to get other board members to back off. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate,
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Can I comment real briefly
Yes.
as well? Yeah, so everything you've said so far is exactly right. I would say as well that ASBA has always been seen as an organization with really high levels of integrity. And this calls into question in this single situation the integrity of the process. And so there are districts throughout the state who are looking at the same wording of this same resolution to send along to ASBA and say, you guys did 107 things in a row right, and number 108 is not okay. You need to relook at that, please. Now, whether or not they do that is up to them, but it would be your collective voice as a board saying, you know what, go back and take a look at that one again. And it's an important one. It's, you know, it wasn't, should we meet on Thursday or on Wednesday? It was, who's going to be your executive director, so.
And my thought process on this, again, this is just my opinion, is that if we had a principal in our district, or we had a superintendent that falsified their resume to us, we hired that individual and then found out later, and we said, no, we're not listening to that, we would be in serious hot water for continuing to employ that superintendent without the proper background that they presented to us.
I promise I went to college.
Kind of
Just-
what's happening right now, because the general consensus is he's doing a very good job in his role as executive director. However, some of the board members are saying, well, since he's doing a very good job, we should just let this slide. And I
That's
just feel
basically
like
right.
for integrity and honesty and trustworthiness, I mean, we're educators.
Yeah,
Those are the values that we hold true to our hearts, and it seems to me we need to do due diligence here.
right.
But that's my opinion as well. That's just
Yeah.
my opinion.
And I feel we're responsible to the public, and the public knows, this has been in the media, so public knows some of what's going on. I think it's important that we are sensitive to that and we vote or not vote. We can choose not to vote on this. We can choose to deny it, whatever we choose to do. But I just think it's important that we express our view based on what we would do as a board in this situation. Any other comments? Okay.
Did we make a motion? What do we do on that?
Yeah, so I would ask for a motion to approve a joint resolution expressing concern and disapproval regarding the recent executive director appointment process conducted by the Executive Board of the Arizona School Boards Association as presented.
I would like to make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that motion passes. So each of us should sign this document at some point.
I have it for.
Okay. And we will forward that back on to the past presidents group of ASBA, and they will take it with PUSD Governing Board Number 1 with our concerns as set forth. Okay? Thank you. Information and discussion items. Mr. Moore, summary budget report.
As presented.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Number 2, review proposed changes to governing board policy BAA as presented. This would be our first reading of this. Sarah, can we have a quick review of BAA?
There it is.
Oh, this is our board self-evaluation, which we discussed as well at the retreat. It does say in policy, so this would be another one that would remove the copyright from ASBA because we would be making our own change to this. Removing the wording that says not later than October 30th and having the board's self-evaluation completed in conjunction with the superintendent evaluation. So this is our first reading of this policy. Again, we can bring this will come up at the next meeting and we will vote on it at that point. Okay? All right. Our next item is, oh, Mr. Tenney, did you have any information on
Nope,
that?
you nailed it. We're really looking at the board giving itself flexibility to not do your self-evaluation in October of each year. That I don't even know what the reasoning behind that was. Do it at the end of the year. Once you spend an academic year together,
Yeah.
talk about how did we function together? How well did we meet what the law says we need to do? How well did we support the teachers and other staff members in our district?
Okay. Next item is a discussion on HVAC units at PUSD school sites. Mr. Moore.
I do want to note that I told Sarah I thought this meeting would get over at 6:35, which it is right now. If I answer your question, I will be wrong. Are you okay with this? Okay.
I'm okay with you being wrong.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you were okay, because
Is it wrong or gone?
wrong.
Gone.
To be right, we all need to be gone. Okay, our HVACs, I mean, we have 300 plus HVACs. We have like, I don't know, like 3 boilers. Cara, I sent those numbers to you. I actually probably should
Find that email.
send them to everybody. Let's just see, we have, here's your answer. Why isn't it pulling? 353 HVAC units, 7 boilers, 2 chillers, 1 steam boiler, and 3 suspended heaters.
And a partridge in a pear
Pretty much. The HVACs are really, well, actually, the boilers and the HVACs are of a concern. They're all just old. That's the problem, is I would say our average HVAC is 20 years old. Now, the recent changes in the industry kind of makes this worse. So I have my cheat sheet because I didn't know all this before. The problem with our HVACs is they're 20 years old and they're hard to get parts. I mean, it really is. The parts are a problem. High rate of breakage. But the biggest problem is the refrigerant standard in the industry changed. What was used, which is all of ours, besides the couple new ones that we got, is an old refrigerant, R22. The new refrigerant operates at a higher pressure, and unfortunately it's not easy to retrofit an old to the new, just because of that high pressure and what it does to the parts. And being 20 years old, we probably would have more issues trying to put new in old. The old refrigerant, that standard is causing a huge supply and demand. A 30-pound jug of R22, which a 10-ton HVAC unit, and most of our HVACs are between 7.5 ton and 10 ton. A 10-ton unit takes 27 pounds of refrigerant. And so a 30-pound jug of R22 costs over $2,000 now.
Wow.
So, want to start a business? Keep making R22. So this is the problem: is old units, high breakage, can't find parts, specifically the compressors in the old units. So what do? The system that we're put in currently is we need them to break in order for us to get new ones, and that's the School Facility Oversight Board model. So we've probably replaced maybe 10, 15 of our units over the last 10 years, 6 years. This year, I've brought to the board to you, I have 3 more applications for HVAC units in SFB right now, waiting to be approved so I can bring more to you. And so that's really where our HVACs are. They're very old. Our system is they got to break. Unfortunately, when they break, we're putting portable heaters and coolers. This is our learning environment for our kids, and almost every HVAC cools or heats a classroom because they're multi-room. So that's really our status of our HVACs in the district. It's sad.
And Brian, Carr asked a great question. If
What
we
was
were
that?
looking to say, you know what, it is time to stop throwing good money after bad. These are old. Who cares what the State Facilities Board does? Let's just replace these ourselves. Your estimate to replace the ones that we haven't recently replaced was roughly, I've got the email here.
A 7.5, 10-ton is averaging 35, 40,000. We have some 20-ton units that we have to have a helicopter or a crane out of Phoenix come. They're in the 60,000. Just the 4 HVACs on Hendricks that was approved to replace, that was 130,000. So my estimate, just throwing the numbers, and this really doesn't include the boilers, because boilers are just, I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to redo one of our boilers or a new one. So my guess is we'd be looking at a $13 million bond.
If we decide we don't want to go through the School Facilities Board anymore,
to
we don't
do
like their process.
all of them at once.
It breaks, and then you apply to fix it, apply for money to fix it and go through the board twice, et cetera, et cetera. If we just said, forget that game, let's just do it.
And that's
Ballpark
simply
13 million.
just taking the 35,000 times the 300. I mean, that right there is about $10 million. So I did not ask for someone to come out and quote how much it would be for all. It was just simply, what have we been replacing? What are the current prices for replacement? And I just times it by what's in our district. So I think it probably would be a 12 to $13 million bond. And if you remember, our 2015 bond was $15 million. So we really would be looking at doing something similar, which is the next discussion item. But if you have any questions or comments on just where our HVACs are, I'm here to answer.
And Brian, can you remind us, I'm sorry, if that's all right. That's fine. Our last bond wasn't all for air conditioners. It was, we paved parking lots, we bought technology, we bought new buses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we did something right around the same amount as the last one, we would be doing air conditioning only. If we decided we're just done with this air conditioning game, we're going to fix it all right now.
Yeah, that's just our air conditioning.
No technology would come out of that. We'd have to go for a much higher bond if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
We have that bonding capacity. Legally, we could ask for that, but it's a question of whether, you know, the nice folks in town would say.
And I got all of that information in the next discussion item of how much we can bond for, how does that figure it all at, lovely stuff.
So all of you who wonder why we're talking about this, is I, with an ear to the ground, I think a lot of bonds that they're voting on today are going to fail. That money just for schools is not something that's a popular. I could be totally wrong.
I think you're totally right.
But I think in this community, if we just ask the community, we need air conditioners. They changed the laws. We need to update them, and just for a bond on air conditioners, I'm thinking it might go, but that's just why we're talking about it today.
Yeah, and I forgot what I was going to say. In 2020, we did go to our voters and we asked to pay teachers, essentially continue the 2015 override, and that was for a raise to pay our teachers and continue to pay our teachers well. And it was a no. So hopefully, if you're right, things have changed.
So, anyways, go on. Tell us what is how do they work?
Mr. Freyer, are you good?
Are there other questions first about HVACs? Okay, so yeah, the next item then is bonds and overrides. How would this work for
Bonds
us?
and overrides. Bonds are stuff, overrides are services and people. It's really what it breaks down to, it boils down to. And so we would be asking for stuff. And it is simple as, well, not simple, but it is really, it's today, at a future date, our voters would be letting us know if they support us in the capacity to say yes to over 50% saying yes to initiative. And so that's all it would take is one vote over 50%, and that would then allow us to bonds for whatever we ask. We have the capacity to bonds for $170 million. It's 10% of our secondary valuation for our district, which is $1.7 billion. So 12, 13, $15 million bond is
a fraction
nothing.
of what we could legally
that
ask
is like 7% of what we could bond for. And so
Do you have an idea of how much it would raise taxes?
Yep. So since it's similar, I can look back at what our taxes were for the 15. The way bonds work, let me kind of go there. First voters say yes. Step back. First, governing board says this is what we want to do, and enters into with the county saying that we're going to put something on the ballot, which costs about $120,000 just to do that. Now, on even years.
Depends on which years.
Which year?
Even years, the forest fee management will pay for ballot measures. In odd years, it's solely on the district. And so, like, for example, in 2015, it was a perfect timing because that's when our 2000 bond sunsetted, and we made our 2015 bond an override, so it was exactly the same tax rate as what just sunsetted, and in 2015 we passed both. We still currently are paying off, or our constituents are paying off the 2015 bond, and will continue until 2032. So it's 15 plus years to pay off a bond. For spending purposes, usually it's done in issuances, and if we were to do something similar to last time, we get the yes, and then we do an issuance, and we issue bonds. People buy the bonds, we get the money, and we can spend it, and we have 3 years to spend after every issuance. And last time we structured it in 3 issuances, and usually you overlap by a year, so you're never without money to spend on what's needed. And so if we did what we did last time, we would do an issuance, have that money. Usually it's about, well, the first issuance was, so we can issue however much. Let's say it was 12. We could do a 4, 4, and 4. We could say we're going to do 2, 6, and 4, however we want. But we still, our taxpayers still pay well past. We're done spending the money. Now, I did talk to we would enter with bond counsel, and we used Stiefel last time, and my administrative recommendation would be to continue using them. They're probably the most authority in the state on bonds. But I talked to them, and they said because of the way we did the last issuance and structured tax rate, they thought that we could probably structure this with very little impact to our tax base. It would just extend out how long, probably past 2040, 42, if we did it next year. So, how much is it? This year, a $200,000 assessed value home, for this year, it's $14 a year. Now, we structured our last bonds where taxpayers got hit less in the latter part. That's why Stiefel said that we could structure it so that we're paying about 50% less for our bond this year than we did last year. So if we did, they would structure it so that the new bond would fill that other half until the last bond sunsetted, and then it would go up to full again. So it would be about $28 a year for a $200,000 assessed home. I rambled there a little bit because it was complicated, and I confused you.
So
Anyway,
I
so
would-
about $30 a year
$30
through
for a $200,000 house.
on a $200,000, and then that's my house.
Assessed value, not a
Assessed
house that
value.
would sell for $200,000.
Correct.
There are no such homes in
No.
Prescott.
Oh, yeah.
Assessed value, which is usually assessed around $450,000. It's usually about 40 to 45% of the market value is the assessed value, and
Okay.
so. But mine is.
So I guess I would like, I don't know, I think it's a good idea. That's up to you guys to help me out. But I'd like to maybe have a survey put online where people can take a survey and say yes or no with the pertinent information. And then just advertise it maybe in the Courier, once you get the survey up and find out, and then bring it back to the board and look and see if it sounds like it might be something that the public would do.
Timing wise, I believe it's.
Yeah, I was going to ask about timing. I also wanted to ask kind of what students feel is necessary in something like this.
Yeah, so I guess after the whole bond and override idea was brought to light for me, it prompted me to reflect on my own student experience. And I think that an important aspect of these is more so how it affects educators as a whole. And so when I looked back on my freshman and sophomore years, I then realized that 10 out of the 15 teachers I had throughout those years are no longer actively in teaching positions. And I think that when we look at those that 66% or figure or whatever, I think there's a lot more to it I think it's very easy to distance ourselves from the actual number to the tangible effect it has on a campus. And I think that as a student, and I'm sure all of you know in your educational experience, that having teachers who have stayed with campuses for long periods of times and having campuses that are nice to be on, as in air conditioned or things along those lines, I think had like real tangible effects on not just students wanting to be there, but actively learning and participating within their schools.
Ava?
Great insight.
My mom was very active in the 2015 Bond and Override, and having experienced how it then affected teachers and seeing how defeated teachers were and how people worked so hard and how we had 50 people standing on the corner of Abaya Jet Elementary School with signs, and then it still didn't pass. And I think that it'd be interesting to see the positive effect that it could have on the learning of students if something like this was put into effect and if something like this was passed. And if we, I 100% agree with what Kevin was saying in the fact that we don't have as many teachers who consistently stay. And I think it'd be interesting to see how that influences that and share some of those experiences.
So I think looking at that and kind of knowing the past history of bonds and overrides, typically how they've been done is, I think the survey is a good idea, getting that out, creating a committee and doing this. Is November of 2024 a reasonable time frame for us
We would need
to put this to the voters?
We would need to start now.
Yeah.
A survey probably in the next month and a half of seeing if there's even support, and then starting January. Now, this would be a very specific bond, and so it would be different from the last one where we had a bond oversight committee that was of community members, making sure, because our voter pamphlet very much outlined exactly how we were going to spend our 15 million, and it was a plethora of things. And so that bond oversight committee, just made sure that we were good to our word. This would be pretty straightforward. It's HVACs.
Yeah.
Unless the governing board wanted to extend it a little bit to technology as well. Something just to throw out there, if we were to look in the future at a new high school, that would need to be bonded as well. And so if we do a bonds, because we don't want the school facilities board to give us new HVACs over the next 50 years, that would be on top of a new high school bond as well. So we'd be possibly stacking 3 bonds if they are, which would be okay if our community supported it.
Yeah, I think if the community approved it and we had the same type of involvement from parents and students to support and publicize the need for it, I'd be all for that, as opposed to coming piecemeal with SFOB items. This would solve more issues, I think.
So can we maybe let Sarah put together a survey and send it out with notification in the paper and through the schools that it's out there?
If that's consensus direction from the board, we can absolutely do that.
Are
Would you like us to do that?
Okay with that, or?
So the survey, what I like about this is, it honestly is an angle we've never taken, is that we are specifically talking about an item. And I think the feedback we've received from the previous bonds and overrides, specifically the ones that failed, is, there's a lot of stuff that maybe we don't agree with. We don't agree with the turf on the field or whatever it might be, or we threw in some technology. And so people were really skeptical of the entire package. But we may be onto something where, okay, it's an HVAC these 2 years. Then it's all the roofs. And if we can come to the public and say, gosh dang it, we need these. We have this many students and we need to do this. So I think with a survey, we have to be specific with it. We are looking at HVAC specifically. What is the flavor out there? And not say, what best interests you? Is it technology? Is it, then we get too vague. And so I do like the angle that Kara is presenting.
And just on the survey, put a little blurb on there that like Brian said, that the air conditioning law, it has changed. We can't,
Background here.
and just put it out.
It's a fairly
and
complicated
we'll
issue.
see
It
it
took
out.
Brian 7 minutes to explain it to us, but we could try to summarize it in a way that
Yeah.
would be digestible for people and then ask. What, I love that the board is showing some enthusiasm for this. I will tell you the last, time that we went to folks, said, hey, will you help pay a little bit more locally for our schools? We're right at the bottom of the nation. What they said was, show us some results and then we'll pay. Well, we showed some results tonight. We're an A district. Hardly anybody else is. We are performing better than virtually every other district in the state of Arizona. So I'd love to see if those people are going to put literally their money where their mouths are, if they're going to say, well, my data shows something else.
Yeah, and that's what I'll say. I mean, it was pretty crushing in the 2020 failure. I mean, that was a resounding no to support for us, and especially when it was the teachers, it was the staff, it was the paraprofessionals. And so I think a survey is a great idea. And I think it would take every single person in this room to sell it.
Yeah, everybody.
And to who we consider our constituents. I mean, it would take a full force, doesn't matter if you like red better than blue or green better than orange. This is why this is good, and environment is important to our kids.
I think that's a key part of it, is the environment for our students to learn needs to be improved. That's one piece of it. I mean, there's a whole lot of pieces to this, but I do like the specific nature of this, I think. That
It's
allows us
real
to maybe do this
specific.
in the short period of time that we would have, as opposed to a broader bond and override that we would have to sell.
It gets your foot in the door that they're thinking that, way, that this is only for that, and okay. But then they've approved one, and it's back on track.
I just want to point out that our student representatives have shown us how to properly answer a question. I don't think I've ever answered a question so well in my life. So, well done.
When we bring back the survey results, certainly that might be a good time to talk about all the things that have to happen for a bond campaign. I remember that, and it's a full-time job.
Yeah, it's intense.
And so I'm not saying we couldn't do it. I'm just saying we would need to really think about how to get the work done.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot.
And what it took for the 2015, and what you said, I mean, it was staff members on corners, 6:45, begging essentially our community to say yes on something that is so crucial, and that is our future's education.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to beg, and it passed 2-1.
Yes.
It was a great passage. It was amazing, 66%.
But we had an amazing bond and override committee
Yes.
that networked a lot in our
And it was
community.
one unified voice on why this is important and why we need this. Why is this best for the district?
Yeah.
We would need the same.
And I can say, having volunteered on the 2020 Bond and Override Committee, that we did not have that. We were missing that key component that the 2015 override had. There wasn't that involvement on a high level. So a number of things I feel like are in favor of this is the specific nature of it. It's just that short time frame that we have to get it out there, I think. We do really need to put that
I
together.
think we should try.
Okay. And I think the consensus of the
It would be
board is
wonderful
that.
to have
if
the
we
board
get-
behind it.
If we get,
That would be amazing.
2 people on
Wow.
the survey, then we're like, okay, it's
Yeah.
not
Right,
gonna go, we
right.
weren't gonna do it, but, you
Yeah.
know.
We could also throw in there, because I figured on that $200,000 house, and this is where we have to be careful, it's $1.86 more for $1 million. I mean, because I was just talking to Michael, and we got to replace 1,000 Chromebooks over at the high school. That's $300,000. I mean, we got technology where we needed it in 101 with ESSER money and priorities. Well, it's all gone, and now also I'm freaking. Where are we going to get $350,000
If we're gonna do
to
that-
replace at life end Chromebooks that we can't test on?
Yeah.
We could fire 7 teachers and do that, but I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't think it is. I don't think that will get a vote for a bond.
So I think the consensus is, yes, let's move forward with putting a survey together.
Great.
And then next board meeting, we can have this as another either discussion or voting item.
I'll contact Stiefel as well and get a tighter timeline. I called them twice today just to see, because I didn't think about calling them before today. But I'll get a better timeline, and they'll either say, absolutely, that's enough time, or you'll be pushing it,
Okay,
or, I mean, we'll see.
okay.
And if we get all those replaced, then you can start petitioning them for all those roofs that we,
We already have 4 roofs
I know.
in play.
Yes.
And so
But
we're,
then we don't have that many, so. So we can use that
Oh, just wait.
petitioning for different
Other
items.
things, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Put our energy into things besides
Roofs, not
HVAC.
roofs. It's gonna hear it that way, the two
I-
people.
I
Okay,
don't know, it just depends on what state you're from.
Depends on where you
Yep.
live.
I love it. I love it. I hope our community will step up the way you say, and I hope they will do what they've said. Again, for years, they've told us, when you show us some success, that's when we're going to start giving you money.
Every group
Let's see
needs
if
to be
they were right.
convincing why this is a good idea to the other group, until everyone just says yes, and it's a 90% approval rating.
okay. Our next item is community comments. Are there any comments to share, board members? Okay. Next is our next meeting dates, regular study and voting session, December 5th at 5 PM here. PUSD has a professional development day, Thursday, November 9th. That's in conjunction with Veterans Day weekend, so our students are getting a longer weekend. Teachers are still working that day, however. And Veterans Day is Friday, November 10th. And Happy Thanksgiving, November 22nd to the 24th. My favorite holiday of the year.
Whole 3 days of Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And unless there are objections,